Hello everyone, thank you for the opportunity given to us to present our presentation. We are from the fifth group. Now we would like to explain our material about the principles or how to create materials and medias, and the principles or how to design materials and medias. And before we continue to explain our material, I would like to introduce the member of our group. My name is Felix Rejeki Sotani Zebua as the first presenter. The second is Robin Motani Daily as the second presenter. The third is Martin Ifolala Zamasi as the third presenter. And the last one is Yarlin Harefa as the fourth presenter. Now, I would like to explain about the principles or how to create materials and medias, especially the principles to create materials. Akhiruddin et al. 2019, page 37. The principles to create materials are: the first is relevance. Learning materials should be relevant to the achievement of competency standards and basic competencies. If the ability that students are expected to master is memorizing facts, then the learning materials taught must be facts, not concepts or other types of materials. Nah, it means that the materials used in teaching should directly support the learning objectives and goals of the lesson or course. For example, if the learning objectives is for students to be able to write a persuasive essay, the learning materials should include examples of persuasive essay and also include strategies for organizing and writing such essays. The second principle, according to Akhiruddin, is consistency. If there are two kinds of basic competencies that students must master, then the material taught must also include two kinds. It means that the materials used in teaching should align with the overall structure and framework of the course or curriculum. For example, if the curriculum includes both reading comprehension and writing skills as the basic competencies that students must master, so the material learning should include activities and exercises that develop both of the skills. And the last principle, according to Akhiruddin, is adequacy. The material taught should be sufficient to help students master the basic competencies taught. The material should be not too little and should be not too much. Nah, it means that that the material used in teaching should provide enough information, examples, and practice opportunities for students to achieve the desired learning outcomes. The examples of this principle is, if the basic competencies for students to be able to understand and use the present perfect tense, for example, the students should provide enough materials to ensure students understand the concept, including clear explanations of the structure and use of the present perfect, example of its use in context, and opportunities for guided and independent practice. The teacher may also provide additional resources such as worksheets, quizzes, or interactive activities to reinforce the learning and ensure students have adequate practice opportunities to master the basic competency. The second expert is Brown and Raza, 2020, page 35. The principles to create materials are: the first is expose learners to language in authentic use. What is meant by this one is that exposing learners to real-world examples of the target language being used in everyday situations rather than just in a textbook or classroom settings. The second principle is help learners to pay attention to features of authentic input. It means that teaching learners to focus on specific aspects of the language to hear or read in real-world situations such as grammar, vocabulary, and idiomatic or expressions. The third principle is provide the learners with opportunities to use the target language to achieve communicative purposes. What is meant by this one is that giving learners opportunities to practice using the language in real-world situations to achieve a specific goal, such as ordering food, for example, in a restaurant or making a hotel reservation. And the fourth principle is provide opportunities for outcome feedback. It means that giving learners feedback on their performance in using the target language so that they can identify areas for improvement and work to develop their language skills. And the five principles is achieve impact in the sense that they arouse and sustain the learner's curiosity and attention. What this mean by this one is making the learner's experience engaging and interesting. So learners are motivated to continue learning and exploring the target language. And the last one is stimulate intellectual, aesthetic, and emotional involvement. It means that engaging learners on multiple levels, including intellectually, that can be analysis and problem solving, aesthetically, that can be done through creative expression, and emotionally, that can be done through personal connection and relevance. Nah, in intellectual involvement, it means that encourage learners to analyze and solve problems related to the target language. For example, the teacher can give the task to the students that requires them to identify the correct grammatical structure to use in a sentence, or even the teachers can challenge learners to use critical thinking skills to evaluate and interpret information in the target language. For example, have them read a news article and analyze the author's arguments and evidence. In aesthetic involvement, it means that incorporate creative activities into the language learning process, such as writing stories, creating visual art, or composing songs or poems in the target language. And the last one is emotional involvement. It means that use real-life situations and scenarios to help learners connect with the language on a personal level. For example of this one is have them practice language skills related to travel, food, or cultural customs, and encourage learners to share their own experiences and perspectives and create a safe and supportive environment for them to do. And this can help learners feel more invested in the learning process and motivated to continue their language studies. In conclusion, the principles to create materials are: the first is relevance. Learning materials should be relevant to the achievement of competency standards and basic competencies. The second principle to create materials is consistency. It means that if there are two kinds of basic competencies that students must master, then the material taught must also include two kinds. The third principle to create materials is adequacy. It means that the material taught should be sufficient to help students master the basic competencies taught. The fourth principle to create material is expose learners to language use in authentic use. The fifth is help learners to pay attention to features of authentic input. The sixth is provide the learners with opportunities to use the target language to achieve communicative purposes. The seventh is provide opportunities for outcome feedback. And the eighth is achieve impact in the sense that they arouse and sustain the learner's curiosity and attention also. And the ninth, stimulate intellectual, aesthetic, and emotional involvement. So that's all my explanation about the principles to create materials, and the next explanation will be continued by the second presenter. That's all, and thank you.
Good morning everyone. Now I would like to continue to explain about the principle to create medias. In here there are two experts that explain about the principle to create medias. For the first is Sapriya 2019 page 476. The principle to create medias are: the first is in accordance with the objective to be achieved, which means that the principle in making medias must be in accordance with the goals to be achieved. For example, making learning media in the form of descriptive text modules to help students understand more about descriptive text. And the second is about appropriate to support the content of lesson that are vague, concept, principle, or generalizations. For example, we are teaching about types or animals, so we make media images according to concept and fact to support and clarify how these animals look, so that students quickly understand them. And the third is that is about practical, flexible, and enduring. That means easy to use, easy for students to follow. For example, we make learning modules that are practical and flexible. In the module, the understanding of characteristics, types, function, and how to use it is included so that it is easy for students to understand, and the module is durable and can be used returned by other students. And the fourth, that is about the teacher is skilled in using it. That means to making learning media, of course, it is made according to the ability of the teacher, so that the teacher can use and apply the learning media to students easily and understandably. And the last is technical quality. Technical quality is in making media learning media, we must know the quality of the technique so that it is in accordance with the goals to be achieved. And according to Ibrahim, 1991, page 24, and Kiswaro, 2017, page 85. The principle to create medias are: the first is realize that there is no single media that is best for achieve all objectives. Yes, for making media, the teacher must realize that no single media is the best for achieve all goals. Each media has advantage and disadvantage. Now we would like to continue to the second part. It is about the principle to create medias according to Ibrahim, 1991, page 24, and Kiswaro, 2017, page 85. The principle to create medias are: the first, realize that there is no single media is best for achieving all objectives. That means the teacher must realize that not single media is the best for achieving all goals. Each media has advantage and disadvantage. And the second part, that is about media creation should be done objective, meaning that is released used with consideration of the effectiveness of student learning, not because of teacher pleasure or just as a distraction. Yes, it's true. When we would like to make media, we must to objective, so that not just pleasure or just as a distraction to make that. And the last part, it is about media creation should pay attention to the following requirements. In the part A, in accordance with the learning objective to be achieved. Yes, that is true, and this statement almost same with the first statement made by the first expert. And in the part B, availability of media materials. So, making media must also be in accordance with the availability of media materials. And the third, that is about procurement costs. In making media, we must pay attention to the cost of manufacture. To the better the media used, the more expensive the cost of manufacture. And the last is about quality of technical quality. In making learning media, we must know the quality of the technique so that it is in accordance with the goals to be achieved. So that in a conclusion, the principle to create medias are: the first is realize that there is no single media is the best for achieving all objective, and the second is in accordance with the learning objective to be achieved, and the third, appropriate to support the content of lessons, and the fourth, media creation should be done objectively, and the fifth, practical, flexible, and enduring, and the sixth, procurement costs, and the seven, the teacher's skill in using it, and the last is about technical quality. That's all, and thank you.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now let me continue the explanation from our group. I am the third presenter. My name is Martin Ifolala Zamasi. I would like to explain about how to design the material. First, we have to prepare two experts, and from the first expert, their name is D, Kerry, and Wahid. For the first point, that how to design the material is we must to identify the learning outcomes. So, to identify learning outcomes, we must to do this in the first meeting. And then we must to decide what are the objective of our learning. And then we must to connect the activities with the learning objective that we must to achieve. For example, when we want to identify learning outcomes, we must to know what are the standard competency and basic competency that we apply in the classroom. And this is we do in the first meeting, and then continue with the practice and theory in a classroom. For example, we apply the standard competency and basic competency about to achieve the listening skill. We must to achieve the listening skill must to increase it by student. And then this is one how to design the material based the learning objective. We will know that uh, what are things that we must to achieve. So that to design the material, the first point that we must to do is identify the learning outcomes. The second, we must to carry out learning analysis. What are carrying out learning analysis? Learning analysis is the first step also. This is the first step in the first meeting also. So that the first point that identify learning outcomes and carry out of the learning analysis, this is have relation. So that the carry out the learning analysis is the second step from uh, to continue from the first point that is identify learning outcomes. Yeah, how to carry out about learning, how to analyze the learning. Yeah, here we have to divide into three how to analyze the learning activities. For the first, we must to analyze what are the learning needed. Yeah, for example, when we found in syllabus that we must to increase is about uh, listening, we must to achieve the listening. So what are things that we must to do in the first meeting to carrying out the learning analysis? It is about analyze the needed uh, to achieve the listening, to achieve the increasing of listening skill. So that what are going we must to do, this is we may do like training. For example, we apply or we are going to do to give record in the classroom. We give to student and they are will pay attention. They are will give what are the important point that they are will write in their books. And beside that, you uh, we are uh, we are may do like give them exercise, and then we are give them recording about one conversation. And this is also another one uh, from the activity that they are perhaps doing. And then the second analysis that we can apply in analysis of uh, learning, it is about analysis. We must to decide we must to decide the learning objective. So that to decide the learning objective, it is relate with the first point, that identify learning outcome. So that when we identify learning outcomes, it is also continue by carry out learning analysis with analysis the what is learning objective that we are going to do. And then the third is the when we are going to do the analysis, we must to select and develop the learning resource. So how to develop, how to select the learning resource, I think this is more enough, this is enough clear when we are here together in the last week meeting, or in 2 weeks ago when uh, the when group show their presentation for 1 week ago. And then the third point that we are going to do to design the material is we must to identify input behavior and student characteristic. Also, I explained you that to identify input behavior and student characteristic, we must to analyze this every the student in a classroom, so that basis the result of analysis of student, we may know that uh, the student suitable with this material, or the student is suitable with this material. So that uh, for example, some of student have different characteristic and behavior. Some of student have clever, and then some of student have lazy, or some of student have do something that I think bad in the classroom. So uh, some of students, so maybe they are do the another activity in the classroom because because the designing of material is boring. So to to avoid them to avoid the bad characteristic from the student, and to make it in one united, so we must to identify the input behavior and student characteristic. And the fourth point that we must to know is we are must to formulate the expected and abilities, a formulate expected and abilities. So this is related with the first point that the expert state. It is about identify learning outcomes. So in a classroom, when we are going to design the material, we must to formulate what are abilities that they are achieve. When I explain the first point that uh, student must to achieve the listening abilities. So this is also related with the fourth point, that formulate expected and abilities. So that in designing material, we must to formulate what are the abilities must to achieve by the student. And then the fifth point that we are going to do to design the material is we are must to develop benchmark reference items. Yeah, uh this is about the test. Yeah, the test based uh the test that we are going to do to student. Yeah, this is to measure how far the achievement of student that they are gain in the instructional. This is also to measure the ability to achieve the instructional aim. Yeah, instructional aim here is one state that explain about uh, the performance that the ability that they are expected as the result of the learning process. And then uh, the six is we are going to develop the learning strategies, so that uh, as well as we know that the strategy in the learning process is very much, and then we are often do it in our class. Here I have many I have 4 strategy that I recommend for our friends to design the material. For example, the strategy that I give for my friend is discovery learning. What are discovery learning? Discovery learning is about to do some experience or experiment, and then they are may get some experience with the experiment, and then we are have inquiry learning strategy. What are inquiry learning strategy? I think this is uh, about the feedback from the student. There are asking and giving answer, and then we are have the strategy about problem based learning. What are problem based learning? It is about uh, it is related with the student do some activity based the problem in learning, and then they are may find out the how to solve the problem, and then here the last strategy that you are that recommend that you are going to do in a classroom to design the material is a problem based project. What are a problem based project strategy? It is related with the student that they are going to do the activity in a one group in a one project, and that they are do some discussion, and then they are going to find some problem, and then they are give this the solution to solve the problem. And this is the first strategy that recommended in the learning process. I will repeat you that the strategy you may use in the classroom to design the material is first discovery learning strategy, and then inquiry learning strategy, problem based learning strategy, and problem based best project strategy. And then number seven, the 7 point that we are going to design the material is we must to developing and selecting learning material, so that this is also continue or the next explanation from the second point, when we are analyzes what are the learning material, learning analysis, so that this is the next from the explanation by learning analysis. So here we must to develop and we must to select the learning material. Yeah. So to design the material, we must to know what must we must to develop, what must the learning material that suitable with the level that they are stay, and then this is as the requirement to design the material, so that this is also suitable with the learning objective. And then the eight point eight, it is about designing and conducting formative evaluation. So what are designing and conducting formative evaluation? Besides we are going to design the material, we in designing material also there are point that we must to design and conducting formative evaluation. What is formative evaluation? Formative evaluation is uh, the activity of student and teacher. This mean to see the increasing of student learning, so that it is to see what are what are the achievement, what are increased of student in learning, as well as they are going to do the learning. And then this is as the feedback uh, for student to give the perfection in a learning program, so that uh, it is also as a basic to give the student the value, and this is as one of feedback when student have something problem in material. And then evaluation uh, or formative evaluation is do in the training. I mean, this is do based the practice, yeah, so that to do the evaluation, formative evaluation, this is based the practice. And then what are the purpose from the evaluation, formative evaluation? This is also to improve the process of learning. Uh, this is not just for increase the ability of student. So if we to design the material, we need the formative evaluation to we need the formative evaluation to improve the learning process, not just to increase the ability of student. And then the point 9, that is about revising learning material. Revising learning material, it is about revision. What are we are going to revise? This is about we are going to revise about the content in a material that we are going to explain to the student. So what are the content that we are going to revise? Maybe about what are suitable material that they are need. And then we are going to revise the substance of learning resource, so that the process of uh, learning is perfect. And then what the second of revising is about, we are going to revise what are the ways, what are the strategy, what are the method that we are going uh, to apply. And then this is also influence us when we are going to use the media. And then this is our ways, yeah, this is revision for our ways, yeah, that we are used to apply or to implement the learning results. And the last point that the first expert explained to design the material is we are most to design and conducting the summative evaluation. Beside the formative evaluation, we have another evaluation. It is about summative evaluation. What are the summative evaluation? Summative evaluation is a activity to give the value that produce value and a number. Then this is also as a decision for the expected or the result of student test. So this is the function of summative evaluation. It is related to measure, yeah, to measure the ability and the comprehension of student. So to with the summative evaluation, we will know how far the student ability, how far the student comprehension in a learning material. And then this is as the media to give the feedback for student. This is also as the feedback for student. What are the feedback that may give in student? It is like the teacher will give value, like as what I explained before that summative evaluation is about to the activity to give the result, to give the produce, I mean to produce the value and number as as the decision for the student expected or the result of student effort in their learning. And for example, what are the activity that we produce the value? It is a presentation, like as well as we do, as well as I do like now right now. It is about presentate. Yeah, I presented how to design the material. This is one the example how to design the material, and then to design the material we use the summative evaluation that this is that function to give the measurement of the ability and comprehension of student. So that this is the explanation about the from the first statement by the expert, and then I continue for the second expert. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now let me continue the second expert. The statement from the second expert, it is according to Susiyanti in 2021. And the ways of design according to her is first, we must to analysis of the learning environment. So, to analysis of the learning environment, it is relate with the all the condition that influence the behavior from the subject that involves in the learning, and this is particularly for teacher and the student as a player in the learning in the school. And then we must to analysis of learning needs, as well as I explained in the first expert, that we must to know what are we need in the learning process. And then the third point is we must to design the learning process, as well as I explained in the first expert, we must to design what are how is designing of the process in learning. And then the third point that the step to design the material is determine the learning model, so the the model that we are going to use in learning is a model that is a conceptual framework that paint the procedure with systematically in organized experiment experience of learning. And this is also function to achieve the purpose of learning. And then as the function as the function as the function for designer of learning, and the teacher in make the planning and do the activity of learning. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now let me continue. The fifth point to how to design the material is we must to develop the teaching materials. This is related with the learning resource, so we must to develop what are to be the learning resource. And then this is one activity to improve, to create the activity in the classroom, increase it. And then it is will make the teacher easier to achieve the learning objective. And then the last point that we are going to do to design the material is evaluate learning outcomes. So how to evaluate learning outcomes? It is based the activity that we are going in the mid semester. So what are the activities that we are going in the mid semester? It is related with the examination. So as the conclusion to design the material is uh, first is we must to identify learning outcomes. Second, we must to carry out of learning analysis. The third is we must to analyze of the learning environment. The fourth is we must to formulate the expected and abilities. The fifth is we must to develop benchmark reference items. The sixth is we must to determine the learning process. The seventh is we must to develop the learning strategies. The eighth is we must to develop and selecting learning materials. And then the nine is we must to design and conducting this formative evaluations. And then the 10 is we must to revise the learning materials. And the last point that we are going to design the material as the conclusion is we must to design and conducting the summative evaluation. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all about the explanation for how to design the material. That's all, and thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Now I will continue to explain to you about how to design medias. For the first is according to RT 2022, page 143. The ways to design media are: first, identify the characteristics of students and their needs. Of course, the needs of elementary school students will differ from those of high school students. To make appropriate learning media, we need information on student needs and their learning styles. Second is formulate the purpose of using the media, which is the final result that is expected to occur in students in the learning process. The third is formulate material according to learning objectives. The fourth is formulate a measure of success or evaluation or post test. 5. Develop an outline of the media program. In this case, making an outline of the media program the same as when the teacher make a lesson plan or syllabus by adding what learning media will be used according to the material. The sixth is test media. 7. Revision and refinement. 8. Making learning media. So that's all according to RT. Now the expert second. According to Dewi 2021, the ways to design media are: first, planning the use of media. The meaning is statement. Teacher must identify the needs and characteristics of students in the use of learning media. A plan is based on needs. An indicator of a need is the ability, skills, and attitudes of students what we want students to master. The statement second is formulation. The meaning is learning media must be made in such a way that it will help and facilitate students to achieve learning goals. In addition, learning media must contain material related to the substance of the lesson content that students must master. The third is selecting and designing learning media. The meaning is to make the right media for learning activities will usually include one of three possibilities, namely using existing learning media, changing existing media, or designing new media. The fourth is student engagement. The most effective learning situations are learning situations that provide opportunities for students to respond and engage in learning. Therefore, students must be involved as much as possible in the utilization of the use of learning media. The five, conducting evaluation. The purpose of evaluating instructional media is to select instructional media to be used in class. See procedures for using media to check whether all the objectives for using the media have been achieved. Assess the teacher's ability to use media, provide information for administrative purposes, and to improve the media itself. So that's all according to second expert, and based on the statement expert, we can conclude how to design medias. For the first is identify students' characteristics and needs. Second, formulate the purpose of using the media. Third, formulate the material in accordance with the learning objectives. 4. Formulate success measurement tools. 5. Develop an outline of the media program. 6. Selecting and designing learning media. 7. Conducting media trials. 8. Students' engagement. 9. Revision and refinement. And the last is manufacture and of learning medias. So that's all according to conclusion based on the to expert. Now I will explain to you about what is the example of the how to design media. So for the first is example about how to students characteristic and needs. An example of this statement is when we teacher at the elementary school level, we cannot teach them about descriptive text, learning media, but descriptive text is taught of junior high school students. The second is formulate the objective of using media. Uh, in an example of second statement is objectives. Example is statement. For the first is we can uh, if we if teacher makes a lesson plan or syllabus, students can give the objectives how to students or what is the target of the material. uh, I will give you example what is the target of the material. So uh, if materials about descriptive text, so the objective is student can find out what the content of the descriptive text. That is about that is first example about objectives. The second example is students can understand what are the language features in descriptive text. And the last example is students can understand what are the generic structures in descriptive text. So that's all about what is the objectives of using the media. The third is formulate the material in accordance with the learning objectives. So the when teacher makes a lesson plan, the teacher must give the material or topic the material what is the learning uh, every meeting. So based on the objectives, based on the example objectives just now, the material can be the teacher can uh, give the material about descriptive text, about language features, and about generic structure. Uh, the continue is formulate success measurement tools. So uh, if teachers like see how we success for the media, So the teacher can evaluate the students based on the material, based on the explanation today, and uh, the teacher can give the questions about the material to students. First, the first is example of questions. Teacher can can be um, asked to students what is meant by descriptive text, what are the language features in descriptive text, and what are generic structure in descriptive text. So that's all about formulate success measurement tools. And the continue is 5. Develop an outline of the media program. So the develop of outline of the media program, the example is like picture, module, and etc. So the 6 is selecting and designing learning media. Um, in this part, the teacher can be um, design the media of the based on the material, based on the how the explain about the material just now. Uh, the 7 is conducting media trials, 8 students engagement. The 9 is revision and refinement. So based on the material or explanation students in the meeting in classroom with the students, the last week or last pertemuan, last meeting, the teacher can be um, revise or ask about the material, ask to students what is the explanation the material last week or last meeting. The 10 is manufacture of learning medias. So that's all about how to design medias. I hope all of my friends can be seen or can be understand how what is the or, or how to designing the media based on the explanation based on the material. So that's all, and thank you.